You're having in this field of cancer healing and therapy for very many years. So up to now, according to all the knowledge you have gathered, first of all, how do patients with cancer react to your method?
That's a good question. They react in a variety of ways. There's still a number of patients in the United States that think it's just too fantastic an idea that the mind could influence a disease as serious as cancer, and they probably think I'm nuts. But that's getting to be a smaller number. Many, if not most patients, think that their emotions are important to the quality of their life, and they're interested in learning how to manage the stress and their emotions around cancer so that they can live a better quality of life. And more people are believing that the mind and the emotions can really lengthen their survival, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years since we've had some good studies released in the United States that really document that psychological therapy increases life. That has really increased patients' belief in their own healing capacity. The sad thing is that some people really believe that the mind influences their recovery, but they're still afraid to go into psychotherapy, either because they're afraid they can't change anything about themselves, or their pain about the issues is too great.
First of all, you relate quite a lot in the beginning, let's say, stress management to these cancer patients and cancer disease. So we are saying about the stress management. So you consider, first of all, that the stress is the first cause of alteration of disease in the beginning, in the body. And not only that, you are talking about the psychological treatment people need, because people tend to consider disease only that refer to the body. So that's why maybe this movement in the States is very, very strong about the body-mind, let's say, medicine. So in order to cure or to heal the stress, what do you do? Your techniques are relaxation, visualization, and so on and so forth. How do you put this to your patients?
How do I approach them with this? Well, that's why I really start with the focus of teaching them stress management, not necessarily mind-body work, because any patient will acknowledge that their diagnosis and their treatment are stressful, and they're more open to learn stress management techniques just to manage the stress of their illness. And then as they get more proficient at those, and that includes relaxation and imagery, then we bring up the mind-body possibility that in addition to managing stress, they may use their mind and emotions to really help heal their body. Not all our patients agree with that, but we at least try to expose them to that notion. And if they don't, they can still be in the groups and they can still learn the same stress management techniques. It's just that they'll focus them more on managing the stress of their illness rather than thinking about them lengthening survival. I'm not sure if you just take a patient and have them learn to manage their distress and learn good stress management techniques, that may be as healing as if they know that it's really affecting their body. It's important to remember that in David Spiegel's study, his patients didn't think they were influencing their health. They were just focusing on their emotions, and yet they lived longer. So it's possible that for some patients, the idea that their mind influences their body is too big a leap, but they still may live longer because they go into psychotherapy to manage stress better. And I don't think it's important that you sort of hit them over the head with it. What's important is that they address their emotions and learn good skills of relaxation and manage stress better.
And those people that you deal with or you treat, compared to those people who have, let's say, the normal treatment, do they live longer?
In the study that we released in 1981, we compared patients who had been to see us who had advanced cancer of the breast, colon, and liver, breast, colon, and lung, and we compared them to national averages with those diagnoses, and our patients survived twice as long as patients who just had medical treatment. But it wasn't a controlled study, so a lot of people didn't believe that data. But it's interesting that when Dr. Spiegel published his data, which was controlled in 1989, which was 8 years later, he found his patients lived twice as long. So I suspect that that's, when you put a whole group of patients together and average out their increased survival with psychotherapy, it's going to be doubled.
For the past few years, there is being a big current in the States. All types of therapies,
alternative,
which are very much related to the mind and psychotherapy and the body, which you are one of the exponents. Let's say maybe Juan Borisenko, Larry Doshi, or Leshang, and very many other people. It seems to be that among the medical community, in being yourselves nowadays who have a big name, they tend to accept all these therapies and techniques more easily.
Yeah.
But still, do you have a lot of confrontation with, let's say, the traditional medical education people?
No, actually not much anymore. I did years ago when I first started. I had a lot of scars from battles, but I rarely have a conflict with traditional physicians anymore. I'm now in a teaching hospital, so I'm in a medical school and I teach doctors, and I don't think all the doctors that I work with in this cancer hospital believe that what I do lengthens life. They may be somewhat skeptical, but they very much believe that patients do better psychologically if they see me. So they may send me lots of patients without ever believing that I'm lengthening their life. But if they are skeptical, it's so much the predominant climate in my hospital that psychotherapy is important to patients that they would never be directly confrontational with me. They might to themselves disagree, but they're very respectful. And that's more true in more and more of our hospitals. There are still some physicians who have, strong feelings about it, but they're in the minority these days. Almost every major cancer center in our country has studies going on looking at how much psychotherapy lengthens survival, which means they've hired psychologists and spent a lot of money to invest in this kind of treatment. So it's more mainstream than not, but it's taken us 25 years to get there. So I think a lot of the European countries are, 10 or 15 years behind us. We were in England in 1990, and it reminded me of the United States in the 70s. People were still very upset and, antagonistic about these ideas, but once the public gets a hold of them and gets interested in them and starts using them, they demand this kind of treatment, and doctors have little choice.
At the moment, where are you in the States, teaching your groups, and where right at the moment are you developing your programs?
I am at the University of Arkansas Medical School, which is in Little Rock, Arkansas. And at our medical school, we have a cancer center called the Arkansas Cancer Research Center.
Arkansas?
and that's where I'm housed, and that's where I do my work. We do treatment for patients, we educate physicians in their training, and we work side by side with physicians every day in treating patients. And and we also are doing research to document the effects of our work on survival. And in the next year or two, we'll begin to offer training programs where people can come from a distance and actually see us work day by day with physicians and go in the hospitals on rounds with us, so they can really see this work being integrated in a mainstream facility, because it's not fringe or alternative in my hospital. It's right there, integrated within traditional medical treatment.
Let me ask the last question because you need to eat something. First of all, in the States, it is compulsory for the doctors to say to the patient if they do have cancer. So, in your opinion, you consider that the best integration to heal, or at least to improve the standard of living of the patient, that the doctor, the family, and the patient himself or herself should work together with a very open mind and using a very big arsenal of techniques, the more the better?
Absolutely. I think this is a very serious disease, and we should treat it medically, psychologically, pharmacologically, with nutrition, with whatever healing, acupuncture, massage, homeopathy, anything that we know that helps heal and make the body healthier should help the person fight their illness. And I think it works best if the patient and doctor and alternative medicine doctors all work together. That's why I think we're fortunate in our hospital that those people all work in the same hospital. And I think that's what we'll see in the future, that you won't have alternative medicine over here and traditional medicine and psychological medicine, but they'll all be under one roof. We have now massage therapy and acupuncture in our medical school hospital, along with me doing psychotherapy. And I live in a very conservative medical community, so if that's possible there, with enough time and enough studies, I think it's possible all over the world.
What is your opinion about all these names I mentioned before, like Siegel and Doshi, Borisenko, and so on?
Oh, I think they're all important pioneers that have made significant contributions to the work and to the field. And many of them were the people willing to talk about these ideas before they were so well thought of, like you yourself in this country, people who were willing to be controversial to get these ideas out into the public where people could learn from them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. There's a few more questions. And for instance, do patients who do not believe in imagery or visualization get cured, or they get better? Those people?
Oh, sure. Many people are cured either with medical intervention alone, or even if they don't understand about mind-body work. The diagnosis itself is such a transformative psychological event that I think there's a natural process of healing.
So although they don't believe it at all, it is so.
Mm-hmm.
So has the mind a real power to heal?
I think it does. We may find it has equal to the power of medical intervention. I'm not so sure. I would be surprised if it's much less.
So according to your experience, you realize that people do have, when they are active, real power in their minds to heal.
Mm-hmm. And I think the opposite is true, that the mind has the great capacity to bring about our death. So I think the mind can get us well and the mind can make us sick.
Which is the most striking case you came across with?
That's a good question. Probably the case I showed you yesterday, Mrs. Phillips. What's striking about her, one, she had no medical treatment. So that was completely her mind healing her lungs. And secondly, she really had no psychotherapist to help her. This is something she did all by herself, just by reading a book. And she worked at it for over a year. I mean, it was a very hard, long process that she did all by herself. I've watched a few other patients get better when they shouldn't, but usually they've had some medical treatment, and always I was working with them as their therapist, but her experience was extraordinary.
What was her disease?
It was a very unusual head and neck tumor called adenoid cystic carcinoma of the trachea that had spread to her lungs. And she had 5 tumors in her lungs for which there was no medical treatment.
And her disease didn't come back again to her?
No, it's been 12 years and it's never come back. It's a cure.
Maybe, what is the basic difference you notice between American psychology and medicine and the European one? If you got any...
You know, it's really hard to say because each country has its own theoretical traditions. I don't think American psychology and most of Western Europe, like France and Germany and Austria, are all that different in their foundations. They're both analytical in their traditions in the beginning, although in America we've become much more interested in cognitive behavioral and behavioral interventions. But Spanish psychology is very different to me from even Western Europe. You don't have as strong a analytical tradition here, psychoanalysis. And it's more, in many ways, more broad, and there are more diverse theories here than I find in most of Western Europe. You know, I don't know the difference between here, and the United States as much as it seems to me that there's not as much practice of psychotherapy here as there is in our country.
Is cancer still an incurable disease?
No, actually, cancer is more curable than heart disease. More people survive and will be cured of cancer than will recover and not have a second heart attack. So it's our image about it is much worse than the medical reality of the disease.
Why is it that most of the doctors, they give the patients, you are a terminal patient and therefore forget about life? Why do they put that negative impression in their minds?
I think that they're afraid to raise hope and have the patient be disappointed. And they really, in a well-meaning way, think that if they prepare the patient for the worst, the patient will do better. But because they haven't been a patient, they don't know what it's like to live with that attitude. So I think they're trying in their own way to be helpful, but it's just not very helpful.
And the last question. What are the latest investigations and reports in the States about cancer disease or cancer patients?
In the psychological treatment, you mean? Probably the most interesting and the most significant study was Dr. Fawzy's study at UCLA, where he got about a 1/3 reduction in death rate in melanoma patients with just a 6-week group psychotherapy intervention. Now, I don't think that will be the most astounding result because there are at least 15 studies I know of going on in the country that are very important, and I think, including one at our own center, and I think we know more now than we did then, and we provide more comprehensive treatment, so I think we'll see better studies in the future soon.
Okay, thank
Good.
you. I still need